Hello dear students, Namaste everyone. Here we will be starting with this session is all about respiration in plants. This is the other half of bioenergetic concept. First half already studied in another session where the energy was synthesized and was stored through the process of photosynthesis. So glucose was synthesized, stored in the form of starch. But here the same stored food will be broken down and the energy stored in these food will be released, and that released energy will be available for us or for all organisms to do some works. So the process of respiration is also called oxidation. It is also called burning. It is an exergonic process, exergonic process, and it is a catabolic process. So all the four, oxidation or burning or exergonic or catabolic. Why? Because the complex organic matter will be oxidized or burnt into simple substrates. Complex organic matter will be burnt or oxidized into simple substrates to release the energy in the form of ATP. So this is the most important part of respiration. Energy has to be released in the form of ATP. Using ATPs, the organisms will carry out various activities, various works, right? So this is most essential. Then where actually the energy was stored? Say, if you consider complex organic matter as glucose, you write glucose as this. It has got 6 carbon atoms, right? Like this. Now this is the skeleton of glucose. So in this is a complex organic matter. Now each carbon atom is linked by the bonds this way. Each carbon atom is linked by bonds. So what happens in respiration is that this is oxidized. This is a reduced compound. Now it gets oxidized into simple substrates. As it oxidized, the energy stored in these bonds will be released in the form of ATP. And that energy which was stored in the bonds of these complex matters will be called bond energy. So when complex matter is oxidized, the bond energy that is present in the molecules will be oxidized into the ATPs. Bond energy will be released in the form of ATPs. So this is the actual concept behind the process of respiration. Okay. So what actually is respiration? Respiration is a catabolic process where complex organic matters like glucose will be oxidized into the simple matters like carbon dioxide to release energy, or into alcohol or lactic acid or lactate and a small amount of energy. Look at this. You have two different pathways. One, the complex matter will be completely broken down. So this occurs in the presence of oxygen. Here this occurs in the absence of oxygen. This occurs in the presence of oxygen, this occurs in the absence of oxygen. So in the presence of oxygen, the complex matter will be completely oxidized into simple substrates. In the absence of oxygen, this complex matter will be transformed into some other organic matters. So in the presence of oxygen, there is a complete breakdown and major amount of energy is released. Here small amount of energy is released. Hence this is the process of respiration. Thus you have two types of respirations: aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration is also called oxygenic respiration. This is also called anoxygenic respiration. This occurs in the presence of oxygen. This occurs in the absence of oxygen. This is the complete oxidation of the organic matter. Here this is the partial oxidation or incomplete oxidation of the organic matter. Here major amount of energy or large amount of energy is synthesized. Here very small amount of energy is synthesized. This occurs in mitochondria. This occurs in cytoplasm. So these are some of the major differences between the aerobic type of respiration and anaerobic type of respiration. You need to remember all these points very much because very important. Next, that anaerobic respiration is also called fermentation. Okay, it is also called fermentation. Anaerobic respiration, anoxygenic respiration is nothing but fermentation. Fine. Now, the process of respiration, particularly aerobic respiration, involves the cell organelle called mitochondria. Right? The aerobic respiration involves mitochondria, or aerobic respiration occurs inside a cell organelle called mitochondria, which is popularly called the powerhouse of the cell. Why powerhouse? Because large amount of energy is released from mitochondria, so powerhouse. This mitochondria is having an outer membrane, an inner membrane, like this. It has got an outer membrane and it has got an inner membrane. And this inner membrane shows certain inner projections, inward projections at regular intervals. These inward projections are called cristae, singular is crista, plural is cristae. So these inward projections are cristae. And these cristae were the lollipop shaped structures called this way, lollipop shaped structures called F0, F1 particles. F0, F1 particles. Okay, and the inner space of the mitochondrium is called matrix. The space between the outer membrane and inner membrane is called intermembrane space or perichondrial space. Intermembrane space. So this in the matrix will have the DNA, ribosomes, also many other enzymes required for the final process of respiration. Right? Matrix of mitochondria is equivalent to stroma of chloroplast. Okay. Hence, the aerobic respiration takes place within the mitochondrial matrix. Let us start with the basic process of respiration. Basic process of respiration, that is glycolysis. Basic process of respiration called glycolysis. What is glycolysis? Glycolysis refers to the process where one molecule of glucose is broken down into two molecules of pyruvic acid. One molecule of glucose is converted into two molecules of pyruvate, or one molecule of 6-carbon compound is broken down into two molecules of 3-carbon compound. So this is one way of representation. You can also write like this: one molecule of C6H12O6 will be converted into two molecules of CH3COOH, or it is C3H4O3, like this. C3H4O3, CH3COOH, this is pyruvic acid, C3H4O3. And where does, that is why it is glycolysis, lysis of glucose. This process always occurs in cytoplasm. It always occurs in cytoplasm. Why? Because in case of plants, you know, the photosynthesis has taken place in the chloroplast. Light reaction has taken place in chloroplast. Dark reaction was started in chloroplast and ended up in cytoplasm. So, in cytoplasm the food is there. The glucose is there in cytoplasm. Correct? That is why now the food is there in cytoplasm. From there itself the process begins. Glycolysis. So it is conversion or breakdown of glucose into two molecules of pyruvic acid occurring in the cytoplasm. And remember, it is a common process for both aerobic and anaerobic processes. So this is common for both, and this is mainly an anaerobic process because this does not need oxygen. Glycolysis does not need oxygen, so it is an anaerobic process, but it is common to aerobic as well as anaerobic. Alright? Next, let us see in the cytoplasm how the process of glycolysis takes place. The glucose will be first converted into glucose 6-phosphate with the addition of an ATP molecule. or using an ATP molecule. From ATP, one phosphate is added to 6th carbon of the glucose molecule to make it glucose 6-phosphate. And this occurs in the presence of an enzyme called hexokinase. Hexokinase. This glucose 6-phosphate will be isomerized to fructose 6-phosphate. So isomerization takes place. This is phosphorylation, this is isomerization, hence glucose 6-phosphate changes over to fructose 6-phosphate. This fructose 6-phosphate again undergoes one more round of phosphorylation using ATP. The phosphate of ATP will be attached to the first carbon atom of the fructose molecule to make it the fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. Fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. So here, this is a 6-carbon compound, 6-carbon compound, 6-carbon compound, 6-carbon compound. Now what happens is that this 6-carbon compound breaks down into 2 molecules of 3-carbon compound like dihydroxyacetone phosphate and phosphoglyceraldehyde. And both of these are 3-carbon compounds. And they are interconvertible. Right? So one molecule of 6-carbon compound has been broken down into 2 molecules of 3-carbon compounds. Now, what happens is that this PGAL will be converted into 1,3-biphosphate, phosphoglyceric acid, BPGA, biphosphoglyceric acid. It is by the addition of an inorganic phosphate and using NADH molecule. Okay, and here, there is formation of NADH molecule. So now this 1,3-BPGA will become 3-PGA, 3-phosphoglyceric acid, by losing a phosphate molecule. That phosphate molecule will be added to ADP to form ATP. This 3-PGA now gets isomerized to 2-PGA. There is change in the position of phosphate molecule. This phosphate molecule changes from third carbon to 2nd carbon. So 3-PGA, 3-phosphoglyceric acid becomes 2-phosphoglyceric acid. Now this 2-phosphoglyceric acid again undergoes or loses a molecule of water and forms phosphoenol pyruvate. This phosphoenol pyruvate again loses phosphate molecule by dephosphorylation to produce ADP, now gets converted into ATP, and now this forms pyruvate or pyruvic acid. Pyruvate or pyruvic acid. So this is the process actually. So what has happened? One molecule of 6-carbon has been transformed into 2 molecules of 3-carbon. From here onwards, everywhere you will get 2 molecules each. 2 molecules of 3-PGA, 2 molecules of 2-PGA, 2 molecules of phosphoenol pyruvate, and 2 molecules of pyruvic acid. Thus the end product is 1 molecule of 2 molecules of 3 carbon compounds called the pyruvate or pyruvic acid. So 1 molecule of 6 carbon has been converted into 2 molecules of pyruvic acid. Is that fine? Now we will have to consolidate this entire process. You should know at least some of the issues here. Now let us consolidate the entire process. How to consolidate? See, we have taken 1 molecule of glucose. And we have used 2 molecules of ATP in the beginning, and we have used 4 molecules of ADP towards the second half. Also we had used 2 molecules of NADs, and this has produced 2 molecules of pyruvate plus 2 molecules of ADP plus 4 molecules of ATP plus 2 molecules of NADS2, reduced compound NADS2. Now you just balance them. So 2 ATPs are gone here because 4 ATPs here. 4 minus 2 is 2. 4 ADPs used, 2 ADPs are gone, so 2. Now consolidate the entire equation. 1 molecule of glucose has used 2 molecules of ADP and 2 molecules of coenzyme like NAD, and has produced 2 molecules of pyruvate and 2 molecules of ATP plus 2 molecules of NADS2. Look at this. This is the consolidated equation for glycolysis in cytoplasm. So now what is the total income? We are not interested in these intermediary substrates. We are interested in these energy related products. So the major product of the glycolysis are these: 2 molecules of ATPs, 2 molecules of NADS2. NADPH2 in case of photosynthesis. You can also name it as NADPH, NADH, no problem. So NADH in respiration, NADPH2 in photosynthesis. Hence, on one side you should have a consolidated income balance sheet. This is one. So balance sheet. Hope you are clear. Now let me write the balance sheet. I will write the balance sheet here. Glycolysis will produce 2 molecules of ATPs and 2 molecules of NADS2 or NADH. So let it be there at one corner. It's a balance sheet. Is that okay? Now glycolysis is over. In glycolysis, the pyruvic acid has been produced in the cytoplasm, which has occurred in the absence of oxygen. Now this pyruvic acid may further enter into aerobic respiration or may continue in anaerobic respiration. So let's see. Let us complete the anaerobic respiration, which I already told you. Anaerobic respiration is also called anoxygenic respiration or fermentation process. Now this anaerobic respiration is of 2 types. One, the alcoholic fermentation. The other is lactic acid fermentation. Alcoholic fermentation and lactic acid fermentation. 2 types are there. In different organisms, different fermentations will take place. In yeast like microorganisms, like alcoholic fermentation takes place. That is why we use them for various purposes in the food industry, in the brewing industry, or in some other processes. Lactic acid mainly takes place in using lactic acid bacteria, and here in our muscles also lactic acid fermentation takes place. Let us see the alcoholic fermentation. What happens here? Already the glycolysis is done. After glycolysis, either this or this. So now let us start with the pyruvate molecule, CH3, CO, COOH. So two molecules of CH3, CO, COOH are there. Now this alcoholic fermentation is a two-step process, but lactic acid fermentation is one-step process, single-step process. So here what happens is that this CH3COOH will lose carbon dioxide and produce two molecules of acetaldehyde, and two molecules of carbon dioxide are released out. Okay, so carbon dioxide is released here. Then, now this this is first step. Second step is that two molecules of CH3CHO, acetaldehyde molecules, undergo reduction process using the NADH molecules that are produced in glycolysis and will be converted into two molecules of CH3CH2OH. That is ethyl alcohol. Plus, no plus. Now this is the end product of alcoholic fermentation. Correct? So it is a two-step process. The pyruvic acid first will be converted into acetaldehyde, and that acetaldehyde undergoes reduction process using NADH molecules, and ethyl alcohol will be produced. So here, look at the end product of glycolysis. You had ATP and NADH. Now NADH has been used here. Now what is left out? Only ATP. That is why the energy that you get in alcoholic fermentation is only 2 ATPs. Please remember this. Okay, here you will get only 2 ATPs. That is why in the beginning itself I told you that the amount of energy released in anaerobic respiration is too less. Right. So this is the alcoholic fermentation. Now lactic acid fermentation is one single process, step process, where the two molecules of CH3, CO, COOH will be converted into using NADH again, producing the lactic acid or lactate. Lactate. Here there is no evolution of carbon dioxide. This is another difference. Alcoholic fermentation releases carbon dioxide. That is why, see, the food products like bread, dosa, idli are all very smooth because of this release of carbon dioxide. But here there is no release of carbon dioxide. But end product is the same, again the only 2 ATPs. So amount of energy produced in both the fermentations will be same, 2 ATPs only. Those 2 ATPs were not produced during fermentation process, but they were produced during glycolysis. But apart from that, carbon dioxide is released in alcoholic fermentation. Carbon dioxide is not released in lactic acid fermentation. Please remember these differences, okay? Thus, the process of anaerobic respiration yields very small amount of energy. Now let us go ahead. Next step. Aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration. In aerobic respiration, which occurs in the presence of oxygen, there will be complete breakdown. That is why the aerobic respiration always takes place in the mitochondrium. Look at this. Now this is cytoplasm. This is mitochondria. Now glycolysis has taken place in the cytoplasm. Glucose has been converted into pyruvate. Now this pyruvate will be transferred into the mitochondria. Okay, this pyruvate will be transferred into mitochondria using two molecules of ATPs. So, in case of aerobic respiration, the two ATPs generated during glycolysis will be used up in transferring the pyruvic acid from the cytoplasm into the matrix of mitochondria. So now at this stage you will have, or you will be left with only two molecules of NADH, that's all. Now here in this matrix the aerobic respiration takes place. This aerobic respiration involves three steps. 1. Preparatory step, Krebs cycle, and the electron transport system. Okay. Before I continue, please remember glycolytic process is also called EMP pathway. Glycolytic process is also called EMP pathway, means Embden, Meyerhof, and Paranas pathway. Names of the scientists. Embden, Meyerhof, Paranas pathway is also called glycolytic phenomenon. Thus, these are the three major steps of aerobic respiration. Remember, so three steps of aerobic respiration are preparatory step, Krebs cycle, and electron transport system. And all these occur in the mitochondria. Now, let us see them one by one. Preparatory step is also called the oxidative decarboxylation step. Preparatory step is also called oxidative decarboxylation. So, which occurs in the where? Mitochondrial matrix. So, what happens here? Now, which has entered the mitochondrial matrix? The two molecules of pyruvates have entered the mitochondrial matrix. Now, these pyruvates first undergo decarboxylation. Decarboxylation means removal of carbon dioxide. So, carbon dioxide will be removed. So, it forms the two molecules of the acetyl molecule and losing two molecules of carbon dioxide. See, you write the equation for respiration, right? Glucose plus oxygen producing carbon dioxide and water. See, first half glucose has been used up in glycolysis. Oxygen still has not come into the picture. Second half, carbon dioxide, one of the substrates will be produced here. Water still has not come into picture. So, you will get a question. The carbon dioxide, one of the end products of respiration, will be produced during oxidative decarboxylation. So, now this acetyl-CoA, two molecules of acetyl molecules will undergo oxidation, or rather here oxidation will also takes place. Let me represent here itself. Here it is the removal of oxidation, that is loss of protons, which will join NAD molecule to produce NADH. So 2 molecules of NADH are again produced here. That will combine with the coenzyme A to produce 2 molecules of acetyl CoA. 2 molecules of acetyl CoA. Look at this. Is that okay? Thus, this is how the preparatory step takes place. Why it is called preparatory step? Because pyruvate is a 3-carbon compound. In the Krebs cycle, the next step, it doesn't accept a 3-carbon compound. So, it accepts a 2-carbon compound. So, it is converted into a 2-carbon compound. Acetyl CoA is a 2-carbon compound, so that it can easily enter into Krebs cycle. Next. So, now what is the income again? Income in preparatory step are 2 molecules of NADH. 2 molecules of NADH. So, this is another. So, now in the mitochondrial matrix, we have got acetyl CoA. Coming to Krebs cycle. Which is also called citric acid cycle. Which is also called TCA cycle, tricarboxylic acid cycle. You can call by any name. Krebs cycle, TCA cycle, citric acid cycle, anything. And it is a cycle. It's not a sequence by this one, pathway, it's a sequence. Pathway only, but cyclic. Cyclic pathway. Now, what happens? This occurs in the again mitochondrial matrix. It occurs in mitochondrial matrix. So, let me write the complete sequence of Krebs cycle. The 2 molecules of acetyl CoA produced in the preparatory step will be accepted by 2 molecules of oxaloacetate. This is a 4-carbon compound. So, the acetyl CoA will be accepted by oxaloacetate. So, 4 carbon plus 2 carbon to produce a 6-carbon compound called citrate. Now, here there will be addition of water also in the presence of water. Now, this citrate will be converted into cis-aconitate, where water is lost. Cis-aconitate will be converted into isocitrate. Again, water will be added. Isocitrate will be converted into oxalosuccinate. Remember, all these are 6-carbon compounds. This oxalosuccinate now undergoes decarboxylation to produce alpha ketoglutaric acid. Alpha ketoglutaric acid, where one molecule or the 2 molecules of carbon dioxide are released, decarboxylation, and 6 minus 1 carbon dioxide becomes 5-carbon compound. So, alpha ketoglutaric acid is a 5-carbon compound. Now, here there is again oxidation process to produce 2 molecules of NADH. This alpha ketoglutaric acid again undergoes decarboxylation to produce succinyl CoA, which is a 4-carbon compound, because decarboxylation, one more carbon dioxide will be lost. Again there is formation of NADH, oxidation process will be there, NADH will be produced. So this is a 4-carbon compound. Now this succinyl CoA will be converted into succinate, then to fumarate, then to malate, then to oxaloacetate. So this is a 4-carbon compound, this is also a 4-carbon compound, this is also 4-carbon, this is also 4-carbon. Now here there is formation of 2 molecules of GTP, guanosine triphosphate. Here there is formation of 2 molecules of FADH2, another energy rich substrate, and here there is formation of 2 molecules of NADH. See, this is the Krebs cycle. Hope you are clear. Look at the entire process. Here you will see the formation of, look at this, one NADH, another NADH, and one more NADH. One single turn of Krebs cycle, listen, one single turn of Krebs cycle produces 3 molecules of NADH and a molecule of FADH. So, one glucose produces 2 pyruvates, produces 2 acetyl-CoA, which undergo 2 cycles of Krebs cycle. So, in 2 cycles of Krebs cycle, you will have totally 6 molecules of NADH and 2 molecules of FADH and 2 molecules of GTP. And what you should remember is where actually NADH and FADH are produced. See, FADH are produced when succinate is converted into fumarate. NADH are produced by 2 successive decarboxylations and another conversion from a malate to oxaloacetate. So, oxaloacetate is regenerated so that it can accept one more acetyl-CoA so that the cycle can continue. Okay, cycle can continue. Again 2 molecules of carbon dioxide have been released, but the actual substrate which we write in the equation, that it is there. Okay. Now write the balance sheet. Balance sheet. Krebs cycle has produced 6 molecules of NADH, 2 molecules of FADH2 and 2 molecules of GTP. Now what is the total income per glucose molecule? So one glucose molecule at the end of the aerobic respiration produces 2, 4, 10 NADH molecules, 2 FADH molecules and 2 GTPs. This we do not consider because it has been used up in transferring the pyruvic acid from cytoplasm into matrix. Now this is what you should remember. Per glucose molecule, the energy that you get is this. But we actually need the energy in the form of ATP. Where is ATP here? You ignore GTP. GTP is equivalent to ATP. So we have only 2 ATPs. But what about NADH and FADH? We don't want NADH and FADH. We need ATPs. That is why now the next issue is the conversion of these into ATPs. They have to be converted into ATPs, which will be done in the last step called electron transport system. In electron transport system, that will be done. How is that? Let's see. Let this be there like that only. Now what is electron transport system? Electron transport system is a chain of electron carriers and proton carriers present on the inner membrane of mitochondria. It is present on the inner membrane of mitochondria. Say for example, suppose this is mitochondrial outer membrane, this is inner membrane. Here you will find the series of electron transport system. This is one electron transport system, another ETS, another ETS, another ETS. So many ETS will be there all along the length of inner membrane. So this will have the electron carriers and proton carriers, and it includes or it functions based on the principle of redox process. Principle is redox process, which is nothing but reduction and oxidation. So principle is this: ETS works on the basis of redox process. Then structurally it is made of 4 components or 4 complexes, like complex 1, complex 2, complex 3 and complex 4. Of this, complex 2 does not play its role in ETS because it has played its role in Krebs cycle. So we don't consider second complex in ETS, but it will be there. Okay, this will be there, but we don't consider. So ETS will particularly function based using these 3 complexes. And ultimately, the final electron acceptor is oxygen. Final electron acceptor is oxygen. Okay. So what happens now? The final electron acceptor oxygen accepts electrons as well as protons and produce water. Since, see, the process of respiration is also called terminal oxidation. Terminal oxidation because at the last step of ETS, the glucose has been oxidized. The interpretation is like that. Okay. So at the last step, water molecule has been produced, oxygen has been reduced to water. So it is called terminal oxidation. So the last final electron acceptor of ETS is oxygen. So that is how it goes. So I will just give you a diagrammatic representation, not in detail, in a very brief way. There will be complex 1, complex 3, complex 4. This is one ETS. And now what happens is that either NADH or FADH2 will enter into complex 1, and these are reduced compounds. Now they get oxidized, releasing protons and electrons. They will be transferred to complex 3, and again they will be transferred to complex 4, and there will be oxygen towards the end. Electrons will be accepted by oxygen to give rise to water. This is the simple representation of ETS. Hope you are clear about this. Now, where actually, what is our aim of ETS? Aim of ETS is to convert FADH and NADH2 into ATP. Where actually it has taken place? So here, all through the passage, at regular intervals, ATPs are released. Like this. ATPs are released at regular intervals. How the ATPs are released? Look at this. Now, this is outer membrane, this is inner membrane, this is F0F1 particle. F0F1 particle. Now here is ETS in the inner membrane. Inner membrane has got ETS. Crista has got many F0F1 particles like this. Now, while ETS is functioning at regular intervals, lots of protons are accumulated in inner membrane or intermembrane space. I repeat, during the electron transport system, many protons are released into the intermembrane space, and accumulation of protons in the intermembrane space will create something called proton motive force. This proton motive force will transfer protons into the mitochondrial matrix across F0F1 particles, during which phosphorylation takes place. Look at this. Phosphorylation takes place. Okay, so due to proton motive force developed in the intermembrane space, the protons are transferred from the intermembrane space into the matrix through F0F1 particles. So at that time, F0F1 particles act as ATP synthases, the enzymes, which help in the phosphorylation process, thus producing ATP. Clear? So, these both NADH and FADH will enter the ETS, and at that time redox process will be going on, during which protons will be accumulated in intermembrane space, so that proton motive force is developed, which push the protons across the membrane into the matrix, during which phosphorylation takes place. So, this phosphorylation has taken place during the oxidation of glucose. The process is also called oxidative phosphorylation. Process is also called oxidative phosphorylation. So, ATP is generated. So, this is how actually the ATP is generated. Now look at that. When one NADH enters the ETS, it produces 3 ATPs. When one FADH enters ETS, it produces 2 ATPs. So how many are there? We have 10 NADH, that means 10 into 3, 30. We have 2 FADH, 2 into 2, 4, and we have 2 GTPs, that is 2. So totally 36 ATPs per glucose molecule. Hence, when one molecule of glucose enters ETS, it results in the formation of 36 ATPs in aerobic respiration. How many in anaerobic? Only 2. Here it is 36. So that is the major difference. Next. So please remember this. So now what you should also know is that in glycolysis, how many ATPs are generated? Leave this. We have 2 into 3, so 6 ATPs. In preparatory step, 2 into 3, so again 6 ATPs. You should know all these statistics. In Krebs cycle, 6 into 3, 18. 2 into 2, 4 plus 2, totally 24 ATPs. You should know these statistics particularly. Each step, what is the income, you should remember. So, totally there will be formation of 36 ATPs, 24, 30, 36. The actual income of glycolysis is 8 ATPs, but 2 are used up, that is why 6. Here also actual is 38, 2 are used up, so 36. Hope you are clear. Thus, when one molecule of glucose is oxidized by aerobic respiration, 36 ATPs are generated. Now it is found that one glucose molecule has got totally 686 kilocalories of energy. Total energy present in one glucose molecule is 686 kilocalories. But when oxidized, has produced only 36 ATPs. 1 ATP is 7.6 kilocalories of energy. So it produces almost 273 point something, 0.8 kilocalories of energy. 6. Okay. So that means when we respire glucose, one molecule of glucose will give you only 40% of energy. Remaining 60% is wasted as heat. See, the available energy is this. That means major amount is lost as heat. Hence, only 40% of the total energy present in a glucose molecule will be available for activities. So this is how it should be considered. Hope you are clear. Now, we also have something called amphibolic pathway. Amphibolic pathway means actually we consider respiration as catabolism. But sometimes what happens is that the intermediary steps of catabolism revert back to anabolism, thus produce some products. So it can be catabolism or can be anabolism. For example, the glucose, if acts as a respiratory substrate, produces pyruvate, acetyl-CoA, then into energy. If fat is used as energy substrate, that will produce you glycerol and fatty acid, which might directly enter into acetyl-CoA. If proteins are used, they are oxidized into amino acids, which will directly join this level. Correct? So ATPs are generated. That is fine. But what we should remember is that we have in this process here we have come across with PGAL, PGA, etc. Phosphoglyceraldehyde, phosphoglyceric acid were produced. If you consider the dark reaction, there also we had come across with phosphoglyceraldehyde and phosphoglyceric acid. Dark reaction of photosynthesis, correct? So, PGAL produced in catabolism might change over to anabolism and might produce glucose. Or PGA produced during catabolism might change over to the anabolism and this PGA might produce glucose. So, actual catabolism might change over to anabolism also, that is why it is called amphibolic pathway. Hence, the process of respiration is an amphibolic pathway. Next, there is something called respiratory quotient. respiratory quotient, which is also abbreviated as RQ. That means this concept is used to identify which particular substrate has been used in respiration. We never know, plants never know which they are using, but we want to know which has been or which is being used. We want to know. For that, you go for this. So for that, what you should do? You should collect the data of the volume of carbon dioxide released during respiration to the volume of oxygen used. You should collect the data for in a specific period of time, how many carbon dioxide molecules have been released, how many oxygen molecules have been used. So collect the data and apply here, you will get the result. So for example, in a given time, if the plant has used 12 molecules of oxygen and it has released 12 molecules of carbon dioxide, RQ value will be 1. And remember, if RQ value is 1, it is always carbohydrate. Always carbohydrate. So if the RQ value is 1, we should understand that carbohydrate is being used as respiratory substrate. Then, second, if the carbohydrate, if the respiratory quotient is less than 1, if it is less than 1, it may be either protein or fat. If it is more than 1, then we should understand that it is the succulents, organic acids. Organic acids. And it is 0 in case of succulents. Succulents antandre cactus, aloe vera, these are all considered as succulent plants. And it is infinite in case of the anaerobic respiration. Infinite, RQ value will be infinite in case of anaerobic respiration. So if you, based on the value that you obtain, you should decide whether, which particular substrate is being used. So these are all the various issues of the process of respiration. Here, the major thing is that you should remember are the statistics of each step of the aerobic respiration, and the carbon dioxide, the end product released, which particular stage that one of the end products is released, and water molecule, when was it produced. So all these different major small details you must remember and study well. Thank you.